Communications and Technology Committee meeting. I'm Ruben Mahar, the chair. We have the wonderful Richard Hossis and Robert Butler with us, which brings us to our first point. Looks like we have a quorum. Everyone agrees on that? Everyone knows they're here?
Yes.
Me too. Some days I'm not sure. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Have you seen the agenda, Bob? I don't know.
I did.
Okay.
Seen it.
Yeah, should be on your desk.
Looks good.
All right. Minutes. Was talking to Max earlier. We're going to defer those to the next meeting. It's just been crazy with the election coming up.
Yep.
Citizen comments. We'll do the usual. If someone pops in on chat somewhere, Max wouldn't mind letting us know if you see that.
Yep.
We'll answer them as they come along. I've got nothing listed under new business. We're going to compete with Abden for pace.
You're doing good.
Old business. First one we have is Chapel Road updates, which, have you heard anything new? I feel like we're done.
No, I got the cider ready.
Okay, cool.
Is there a take rate that we can talk about?
I've been stalking the telephone poles, but I need to go at a point in the day where not as many people are driving. Quite a few homes are connected.
Good.
The folks that have participated heavily all look like they have coax going to their house. My favorite photo is still the one Robin sent with the Spectrum truck in her house.
The fire in the driveway.
The gentleman with the business and kids at the end of Chapel, I can see a line going there.
Okay.
So I don't know what the rate is, but I think there's a healthy adoption rate. As a bonus, when I drove in today, I went on, I think, is it Old Augusta that crosses between Manktown and Chapel? Or is it something else?
Actually,
I'm sorry, the Mangtown Chapel intersection?
We're
Union.
Yeah. Union? Okay. There was a section of Union with no service, and they completed that too. And I was able to see 3, I think, connections that are there, and then there were a bunch of trucks behind me, and I didn't want to be that guy, so I just got out of the way. So it seems like folks are aware.
they've been crazy now too.
Yeah. So we should just leave Chapel Road on there, so no matter what's going on, we can feel good about our meeting. I'm so happy for those folks. All right, Connect Maine.
Yes. So I sent out an email to members of the committee as well as members on Store Mountain and Flanders Corner, informing them that unfortunately we did not receive any grant this round. It was very competitive, and I think the highest we scored was with Flanders getting 76. I think Store Mountain got 71, and Fentown got, I think it was 40.
Wow.
It was very low. The 270s were around the ballpark estimates I was expecting,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just very competitive. The lowest, like I said in an email, they denied someone who had a 90 in our category.
Oh wow.
90 out of 110. They denied. And that was $8 million. The Connect Maine Authority has actually gone over somewhat the amount they said they were going to be budgeting just for round 1. So they didn't have that much they could really spend throughout. I listened into the Connect Maine Authority meeting on this. They said that one of the big things that I think was a determining factor was towns spent more money on their portion. Like we were asking more in the 40 to 50% grant ask area, and some towns weren't going anywhere near that. I think they were going to 20 to 30% ask, and everything else would be paid for by the ISP as well as the town providing a match. So I don't know if that's something we now need to think about for these last mile expansions. I know that's something that Alan and Randall from LCI have been telling me for or at least this round, that, for their past grants, the towns usually do put up some type of funds and look at like the franchise agreement that we'd have at Spectrum, which I didn't want to really touch because I felt it felt weird for me to make that type of commitment or to consider that, because it's saying Spectrum's paying for competition to now be in town. But that's something that I would leave to the budget at this select board, Julie, and budget committee in the next year, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a recommendation on your own?
I mean, personally, with Flanders and Store, if they are supposedly at 15,000, I would say the town should look at some options because it is a minimum price. And in the case of store, if they are putting up a match, as in the residents are willing to put in a match, I think we could consider that as a real show of faith that they do want it and they can do it. But I know that's also a slippery slope because the town hasn't done that in the past. And then once we do it for one, it's then going to be everyone else saying, well, you paid for this group to get fiber. Why am I not getting that? And then it leads to the whole thing. Yeah. I could certainly give my recommendation of let's just fund it, but it's not my money that's going up on the line. That's the thing I have to always remember.
What are the other things? Assume it's for a moment, it's the franchise fees. If I may, Mr. Chairman. just
Oh, of
explore
course.
this a little bit. Assume for a moment that the source of town funding would be the franchise fees.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Okay.
So it really isn't tax money that's being used.
Hmm.
Does that alter the argument at all?
Well, I only just say the franchise agreement because that was a suggestion that was
Well,
made.
that's the one I would
I mean,
put out there.
I would look at that one. I would also look at the LED savings we're getting from the LED streetlights too. That's because that's 16,000 a year. That's pretty much what the amount is that we're asking for at this. Even if we're not going to wait for the next Connect Maine grant.
Well, got to keep in mind on the LEDs that we're still paying the debt that we
Right.
incurred to finance that.
Right.
But
And I understand that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, that's something that I leave it more and I think would need to have more discussion beyond just this group because I don't get involved in all the budgets for this town, so I don't know if we take all that budget money and put it to just these two roads, what does that mean we're taking the money from? I don't know where the franchise money usually goes. Is it general
goes
fund?
into the general fund?
Right. And so if that amount goes,
Well, let me take that back. Some of it has always gone to LCTV.
I
okay.
think that's at our discretion. I mean, the original design, or not only intent, but part of that was to do things like drive local cable access.
It was, I mean, that was the rationale for.
Yes.
And there's still,
paying it.
there's still a system they broadcast on. Could we get, I would be very curious to know, I guess the fairest way to ask a question would be, get our total list of homes that aren't connected. And I hate to say it, but within reason. If someone has built a giant house that's half a mile into the woods, I feel like that's a different choice. But if someone's on a road where, it was easy enough to get phone line and power to their house, how much in aggregate to get all those folks connected to Charter and to LCI?
Right.
I think that would make it more fair. In the reality, those franchise fees are town money. If I were Charter, I would probably be upset if it turned out that I was paying to connect that other person. At the same time, if they had service out there, they wouldn't have to worry about that. Maybe they would consider that in figuring out their cost there and what is really a one-time expense for what must be close to 100% take rate wherever they get installed.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a matter of also getting some guidelines for how the town doesn't get down this slippery slope. Because you're right, I don't think we want to pay for the one person who lives a mile away from the
Right.
closest connection. But like with Store, 7 people who are saying, we do want it, we are putting up money so we can get it. I feel that's getting into a different story.
And I feel like when you give, it's like anything, when you give those 7 people access that they're not going to write us a check, but we're going to pull that value back out somehow, just in terms of the town's going to do better when those folks do better.
And we know you get better real estate taxes or resale values on homes, which affect real estate taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
When you've got service go to the home.
That's right.
So I personally would be uncomfortable with using those fees to connect a portion of unserved roads. I would be a lot happier asking that question about everything, even if it were doing a road at a time in that formula.
Right.
And you're right, this isn't the group to make that call, but I think that might be a reasonable question to maybe ask Julia to run by the select board and see how they feel about it, and see what they think.
I
Sure.
recommend that this group come up with a recommendation to the board. I recommend that we put our
Okay.
our opinions out there and justify them to see what the response is. I think we should lead on this rather than follow.
Fair.
I do think the select board would benefit from the guidance, however it comes to them.
So what do you think of the idea of using those funds from the franchise fee and getting a cost on wiring all the remaining unserved homes in the town?
Well, I think we need to get a count of who's unserved,
Okay.
where they are.
Yeah.
And which ones, I guess we jerry pick here.
Mhm.
Which ones we feel are justifiably connected with support from the town, not all the funding. But once you have that lined up, I think you can fashion an argument. And maybe we decide at the end of the day, it's not worth fashioning.
Mhm.
On the other hand, we may decide, this makes a lot of sense.
I think it sounds like it's worth putting the work in.
Yeah. Yeah. And we haven't talked about the survey at this point, but at some point that'll go out
Mhm.
and we'll have the information we need, hopefully, to make that analysis. Does that
So-
make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Do we need to, it sounds like we need to wait on getting that data
Yeah, we
before
need the
moving
data.
forward with that yet. So we have the concept, but we're pending
Yeah.
data. Okay.
May I ask when the next round of grants is next?
That was the other thing I was gonna say from that Connect Maine meeting. They give 2 points. One is that if you applied for round 1 and you didn't get it, supposedly they'll give some bonus points for your next round. I don't,
Okay.
but
Hmm.
what they say is different from what they'll do. Because going into the first round, they said we just want to get the expansions, we want to be fair to everyone. And then they dropped the whole thing of it has to now be 100, and the people they accepted the grants for this round were mostly people who would get that 100 dark fiber expansions, whereas other than LCI doing Store Mountain, we really probably won't be able to get that if we were to apply for Fintown or Flanders Corner with charter.
Historically, has it been 1 year?
Well, this year they say they're going to do a second one in the fall. They say that. But I think last time they said they were going to start round 1 in January of this year, and then they had to wait until February to announce it, only to have the cutoff in April. And even then, they extended that deadline because of all these other issues. So I always give a 2-3 month buffer with them.
Is federal money going to be available to Connect Maine for this second round? Would that influence their decision?
That's the other tricky thing, because the money that's been going into the Connect Maine rounds has been the $15 million from last year's bond. The money from like the American Rescue Planning and USDA, they are trying to get more of that into the funding, but I feel that they are trying to get a different authority on the dark fiber type expansions. I don't think they're doing the federal for Connect Maine. They're trying to get it under a separate
Is that the
administration.
Maine Broadband Authority they're establishing? There's a
Yeah.
new group.
Yeah, they're trying to do legislation right now, and that's who I think is supposed. Well, that's actually I think part of the whole thing, because I think they're creating like the Broadband Authority.
Mhm.
But you know who I'm talking about. It's a
Yeah,
representative
yeah,
from I think Oxford who's making it. I think the legislation calls for creating this new arm who would handle the federal funding.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then it's not going to Connect Maine Authority. So I don't know how much money we're expecting in the next round now.
I mean, I would, until it's real, I perceive like it's not. I want it to work, but yeah, I think anyone's been burned by assuming something will come along. There's a lot of smart people working on that, but it's not real until it's real.
Yeah, you're right.
So, but I think to Bob's point is we should still at least get that talking now, so that if it is going to be in the fall, we can be prepared for something. Although,
It would basically
Yeah.
be Store Mountain, wouldn't it? If that 100 by 100 standard is.
and that's what I need clarification from Connect Maine that I haven't gotten a response from.
Well, I think that a lot of that work's been done. You'll be repeating it, but I think you've already gotten a lot of hard work done there. I don't see any reason not to do that. Even if one more house gets connected somewhere via whatever, great.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, that won't be our only, it's not gonna be our only effort in getting this stuff done.
Right.
But I think with that 100, that's just something we need to talk with LCI about. If we were to try this grant program again and get them involved, can they do that 100?
Mhm.
And I guess we need to talk to Connect Maine Authority on what they mean by that now. Is it the potential that we talked about where LCI has done 100 in the past, or is it LCI has to retail market 100 day one?
And the other question to ask when you're getting those bonds is they're stringing fiber to homes. I know LCI has done a lot of work in their, I guess they call it their central office, their big rooms of network stuff, and in their middle mile, those points between residences. If that infrastructure isn't sufficient, I think that number would need to be included inside, whether it's a grant, whether it's a bond, whatever it is. We need to ask a complete question. It's not just stringing fiber from the pole to the house. It's all those points in between.
Good point.
Okay, that's not common. Yeah, that's Connect Maine.
So the notes I have on that for Connect Maine, this is really just going forward. One, you've done a huge amount of work, and I know it's disappointing to not get places connected here, especially on the back of finally getting that chapel and those other homes done. But it was still good work. It was still thank you for doing
Thank
it. That's your name will be remembered in the hallways for a very long time, sir.
When reapplying for a grant, do you have to really redo everything, or can you use?
If they change the questions, then I have to redo everything. But if they say we're using the same document, then I'm probably changing a few words because maybe the cost to build has gone up. Maybe I'm not going to get all the residents supporting it again. Flanders Corner may say, well, we'll do LCI this time instead of charter, or it might be Store Mountain saying we'll do charter instead of LCI. So it could be the same if the application's the same pretty much. We just say that we did try it. We'll just say that we did try last time and we just didn't work out.
Yeah, trying is the important.
I think it's an honest answer. That's what I would want.
I agree. And I did forget that Flanders has the option of LCI.
And that might be a factor in the next grant cycle as well.
Right, so once we get the survey data, I guess that would go along with it, but we need to see the survey data. And I'd like to know the total cost, probably broken down by road, to get them connected. And we need that answer from either vendor, or really any vendor that will take a look and give us a number.
And the other, I'm sorry, I'm just remembering the other part with Connect Maine is, I think the same day I found out that we weren't going to get it, I had 2 different inquiries from residents who wanted to be part of the next Connect Maine round. One was from someone who's on Noyes Road, who said, I thought Noyes Road was getting one, and I mentioned the whole story of Connect Maine considers that road served because there's one green light up there, and so there was nothing else. And then the other person was from Pitcher Road, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought they were served. It's off of Friendship.
Okay.
It's really south.
It's kind of a little way off the road.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's more than 1 or 2 people living off Pitcher.
Well, I know Sarah Hotchkiss is there because I've had to drop off planning board
Yeah,
materials.
Susan Price lives further down.
Uh,
Pam lives on the opposite side, but she's not here all the time.
right.
So those are the 3 that I'm aware of that live on Pitcher.
I didn't know. Point is, both of them asked for it the same day, which I felt was very coincidental timing. And I just told them, do the speed test and I'll bring this up at the meeting. And they're now on the list that will at least get chartered to give some prices.
In the description for this video on YouTube, is it okay? You can put, hey, this is the meeting.
Mhm.
Can we get a link placed for the FCC speed test or whatever test you want them to run?
I can do that.
And just to know, if you're concerned about your broadband speed, click here.
Yep.
My hope is if someone's watching this, it's not one of us, they probably would want to look for that.
Right. Question is, where on the website do you put it next?
I don't mean the town website, I mean on YouTube,
Oh,
when they're
on
watching the
YouTube, for
video, in the video description, you can have links below, the meeting
Yeah.
date and time.
I'll do that after.
And then you don't have to navigate the site, it's just right there.
Right.
If you watch other channels, you'll see it all the time. Like if someone's doing a product review, they'll say links in the
Oh, that's a
description.
great idea.
Yeah, any meeting we have, if there's something pertinent, it could be anything, you can put it there. Even a link to the previous meeting if someone wants to catch up.
Okay.
I wouldn't get, it's asking Max to do 100 more things, so use that responsibly, I guess. All right, so if we are done with those, item C, Waldoboro Network. Is that old business? I guess we talked about it before.
Yeah, you've brought it up in some past meetings, so
Okay,
I figured so.
That's fine. So we want to form a question that we can ask. This is separate from building individual roads, and we're going to treat Waldoboro like there's nothing here. We want to start asking privately owned companies, LCI or publicly, LCI charter, any internet service provider, will they help us build a fiber network in town that will drop fiber to every address? It needs to be modern fiber, which as far as I know is capable potentially of 10 gigabits both ways. And realistically, we're looking for service at whatever rates. We'll start with 100 by 100 being the state's number, and hopefully some speeds above that. We need to know who will talk with us. If no one will help us, this is Maine, we'll pull up our boots and do it ourselves. But I would certainly rather have the people that have worked to build a business in Maine work with us to get that done.
Mhm.
So we need to start that conversation. We need to get the numbers. And we need to figure out, I guess when Max is back, I'll touch back on this. This is going to start with who will work with us and then a planning grant to get someone that designs these networks to show us what that would look like. And then get a conversation going with anyone that wants to sit down with the select board. And I would assume one of us sort of advising or pitching or whatever. We got the okay to form that question at the last select board meeting.
Yep.
And I'm going to bring up the Google Doc. And I have we said so many words in here, but I tried to boil it down. So I'm skipping all that. We did a lot of back work on all these different visions we had. I'm skipping all of that because this isn't a group that would design a network, but it's who will work with us to design a network that'll take fiber to every address, capable just in the fiber of a 10 gig synchronous speed if they have the equipment, and capable on day one of delivering at least 100 by 100 at a residential plan. So we want to ask who can help us build that. Is that good enough?
I think that's a good way of doing it.
I think for all the other details we could put in there, and I know a lot of them were me just going, oh, one more thing. I think that's all stuff that would be after the fact. Hey, what else could we do? I know there's a lot of bells and whistles and features that I and a lot of us would like to bolt on, but I think we could just boil it down to that.
Is this your moonshot document?
Part of it, yeah. I've actually pasted it into the CTC 6.7 guide.
As a Google Doc?
Yep. But I've got both of those up, Bob, so let me
Have any of the potential people we contacted in the past, have they indicated an interest, or do they presently serve another town in the same way as running their ISP?
So I can't tell you specifically how the other towns' networks work end to end. What I can tell you is Charter and LCI both responded to my note about this meeting happening tonight.
Mhm.
And they've both, it's been a long time since I've had any complaint about either of them answering us. They both answered. And Charter wants to know what our question ultimately is going to be. And Alan said something along the lines of he's very interested in fiber to the home like they're doing with our neighbors
Yeah,
all
he
around.
said that. Yeah.
So LCI specifically is, I'm not going to say it's old hat, but they've done this. This is a thing they've done.
Okay.
I'm sure Charter wants to deliver their product, and I have nothing against cable internet either. I don't know what tech changes are coming down the pipe or what they'd be willing to do or change. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm never going to call them not creative. What we need to do is see how they respond to our very specific technical request. I would love them to surprise me. That would be really neat. Having, two companies that can deliver fiber to the home in one town, that would be slick. You don't get that a lot of places. The first thing we need to know is who's willing to work with us to do that.
So in your CTC document, you're setting some service levels.
So all the service levels I have listed is, I do have those in there. But I think that would be, I want to ask just a very general question first before we go into details, because I think it would, unless someone here disagrees, I think it's too much to ask in that short form question. The rest of it would be negotiable. I already said at a different meeting what my ultimate list should be, where I'd like to see, 100 by 100 at, whatever set rate, preferably for low income, and then have some other higher price rates, 200 by 200, 500 by 500 and a gig would be great. I don't know what LCI's backbone is like. For that matter, I don't know what Charter's backbone is like. Even if they can't deliver those speeds, even if it were LCI saying, look, we need to stay with the speeds we have now, even if we can get the fiber to those homes everywhere, once it's there, the rest will grow later. I mean, you guys have been here and seen what LCI and Charter have offered for speeds. And every year or every few years, those numbers increase. It's really about working with someone to get those mediums on the poles, and how do we pay for it? I think we've run out of runway to get grants to do these large pieces. There's always stuff we can try for. The vision I have is sitting down and talking to anyone who will talk to us, getting a planning grant to find out what the network would look like. Then we can establish our costs, and then we can say, okay, it's this many dollars. And then we would put out the question to the voters, hey, is this a thing that you want to do for the whole town? Everyone would get this, everyone would benefit. And depending on the features we put in there, there's other things we could generate. Like the suggestion of dark fiber between just the town buildings is so you have one internet connection and one network, even though you have multiple physical locations. That's cheaper to operate. That lets you do a lot more things.
So the first step then is to go out and ask the questions, but then the second step you're indicating is to apply for a planning grant.
At some point, we're going to need that. So any ISP I've talked to, or any company I've talked to, at some point, to get a realistic cost, you need an actionable design.
Right.
The thing we wrote in Google was me Googling prices of fiber. And I can say a lot of very strange words people don't normally hear. You'll never see me climbing a telephone pole, stapling cable. I don't have that skill set. So at some point we need to get a hold of someone that can do that work. And I'm sure any of these ISPs have contacts. If LCI says they want to work with us, my next question would be, hey, Randall, who are you guys using? I'm sure he'd be more than happy to give us a name, who will give us a price, and then we know what to request there. That's what they would have had to do to get other towns connected.
So
at some point, you need that professionally done plan. You can't just buy a spool of fiber and hope for the best. You need a real end-to-end plan to actually construct the thing.
Where does the planning grant come from?
Planning grants can be done through Connect Maine. They always have the planning grant section, and they have the infrastructure
And
grant.
they do those as a separate.
Yeah, they're
Each
always
one is done separately.
right. There's a lot of money going into the infrastructure grants. It doesn't take away the amount that goes to the planning grants.
Is there a required match for a planning grant?
Usually 25% is like the standard for every types of these grants, but I'd have to look at that.
I mean, that's one thing franchise fees could be used for as a match.
And every town's going to be different. I got the number 20,000 in my head, but I don't know why that's in my head. That's probably not even worth considering. We need to find out what those grants really cost.
Yeah.
But I think we could. I'm sure we could ask our town office. Maybe it would be a good request to make of Julie to reach out to towns that are doing this and find out what it costs them to get that planning done.
Somerville and Jefferson are both.
Yep.
Somerville just voted in by one vote, and Jefferson, I can't remember if it's on the ballot for this round or whether they've already decided, but they've got a group
Mhm.
that's working on a planning grant.
If we could synchronize with them so that construction happens at the same time, it will make it less expensive for everyone.
Or even synchronize with them on the grant.
That's another question. Once we get our pricing together, everything we've talked about right now has been Waldoboro. There's nothing preventing us from saying, hey, neighbors,
Yes,
we could be a multi-town or even a multi-county thing. I view this as homework. We've talked about the Midcoast Broadband group. I want to talk to them too, but I feel like I want to get some homework done ahead of that conversation.
I agree.
And I would expect them to expect that from me, which is reasonable.
Yeah.
And once we have that, we can tell them where we've gone, what we've thought. We might have an idea they haven't, and I'm sure they've got some experience to share.
They're gonna wanna answer, they wanna ask us questions,
Yeah.
and we need to have answers for those questions.
Yep. And so once we get this base stuff done, let's invite them into the room and say, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what we've done. What do you think? Maybe there could be a synergy there. Everyone needs that next level of technology. We've outgrown copper. Radio's not going to do it. Cell phones are neat, but those access points are fed by fiber.
Right.
Fiber is the core for everything.
Yep. We're on the same page.
So I guess to circle back around, I want to ask the shortest question I can. So let me put this to you and see what you all think of this question. Dear ISP name here, are you willing to work with us to build a fiber optic network that reaches every home in town?
Every home and business,
Or every address in town?
every address. in
Every
town,
address in town.
Every physical address in
Yeah.
town, yeah.
I ask.
All of the numbers, we could say, hey, we want it to scale up to 10 gig by 10 gig. I wrote that question that way because I wanted it to be fiber optic. Or we could just ask for what we want directly. Let's not beat around the bush. We want to build a fiber network that reaches everyone. We would prefer to do it with a private ISP versus building our own network.
We've put fiber right in the question, right?
Yep.
You ask.
And it's important that it be a fiber to the home network. And again, a company like Charter, and this would not be a thing they do that would be shady. Their network is super fiber dense. But we've already got a cable network in most of the town. This would be a new separate thing.
Yeah.
Unless we can talk Charter into taking their coax out and replacing the last mile with fiber.
So just to throw it back.
Yes,
into
sir.
The question then is, are you willing to work with us to create a fiber network that reaches every physical address in Waldoboro?
Yep.
That's the question.
I think that's the question.
I think that,
It takes all the numbers out, all the cool stuff we want. That's a different phase. That's a negotiation. It's really just a basic question.
well, they just come back and say, well, it depends on what kind of network you want.
They might, and then I think it depends on what they say.
When we're talking network, we're saying private versus public, or what?
Well,
what do you
that's a
mean?
whole other thing. We want, what we're really saying is, hey, I'm going to use LCI as the example because it's the company we're all thinking about. Hey, LCI, we would like your product to reach every home in Waldoboro. Please help us come up with a number to get that done. How do we get there?
Okay, so it's not a fiber network, it's their fiber network, your fiber network.
Well, I'd phrase it as a fiber network, and it could be their fiber network. It can be anyone's fiber network.
Okay.
So if it's LCI, they would be expanding their network. If Charter decided to do it, they might build a whole thing, from scratch. Because we're not just sending this to LCI. I want to send the same question to every ISP.
Pioneer is a possibility.
Yeah, sure.
So it could be either that they own the fiber, or Waldoboro, or it's whatever region we come up with would own the fiber
It really depends
or the
on.
infrastructure.
So essentially you're right. Those are all possibilities. And that would be a later phase. It depends on the cost. If it's the same amount of money to have LCI build a network versus Waldoboro building a network, then you have a much more complicated conversation. And then you get into the conversations about municipal networks. I purposely want to ask it this way because if no one will help us, if for some reason we can't get an ISP that will build this network out with us, okay, we've got to look at a new model and maybe doing it ourselves or doing that with a coalition.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where I think we should start. I think we should start with the places that are already in town and doing
Yeah.
this.
Especially with a positive
This can be done.
response we got.
Yeah. This thing can be done. Running a network is hard. Maintaining a network is hard.
Mhm.
So let's ask the folks that are currently doing that
Mhm.
to give us a better network here. And our benefit from that is getting internet everywhere. And I'm positive those companies are going to need more local employees. And, there's other benefits other than getting that data access.
So whom do you ask, to whom do you pose that question in each of these companies?
So I would send this question to Alan and Randall for LCI. I would send it to the contacts we've been using for Charter. Even though I haven't gotten a response, I think we should use the same contact we've been using with Consolidated, whose name escapes me, but I can find it in the email history. If we want to ask Pioneer Broadband, whoever owns that, I didn't think we should ask Red Zone because they don't do
They
fiber.
do fiber.
Pioneer Broadband. What do they do again?
They are way up in northern Maine. They're not in the area.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they might, who
But
knows?
yeah, if they
And
know how to build a network, if that would be from left field, and I would welcome it.
They
If
might
nothing
farm
else,
it up.
it'll make a great news story.
then I assume like First Light, because they have the dark fiber that runs.
Same
through
thing.
the
We'll
village.
ask First Light the same question.
Axiom, GWI, the usual. Okay.
Is GWI doing fiber?
They have the one in Rockport.
Okay. Okay, so they've done one or doing one.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
they
not
built
like
networks.
it's
just
not a
around here.
town-wide system. It's like one extension. I
Yeah.
think they've done.
And that wasn't, I was around when they were starting to do that. That was not a GWI failure. It stopped where it stopped.
Right.
But the people that are around it are using it.
So this will go out on town letterhead?
That's an excellent question. I wanted to take it to the select board to make sure they were okay with it. And then that's a good question. I think it should come from, even if not on paper, it should probably come from the town. I guess this would be.
Well, it could either come from Max.
Well, this might just be another question I have to ask Julie for
Sure.
clarity. Yeah, because if Julie says, well, the select board already voted, you're fine with you asking your questions, then I think you just need to know what your question is, and then we send that out.
I still think it should go on an official town.
Oh, no, it should go on the official town letterhead. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I don't know if Ruben has to wait until, I know there's a select board meeting tomorrow, but I'm going to say 2 weeks. It's not like Ruben has to wait for another
He's already
select.
got.
Yeah, if you watch the last meeting, they basically
They
said,
did.
do what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and
I'll probably watch that one more time before something goes out. Just,
And-
that's my
And then
nature.
Julie would just say, hey, or Max, put it on town letterhead.
yeah, and that's what
PDF or whatever.
and that's what I'll just make sure is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so.
Okay. Is that something we should vote on? I feel like the three of us agree, but we can make whatever official if you like.
I think that would be
I
fine.
think you have consensus.
Okay,
You do?
great.
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great goal to set, and I'm so glad that you're pushing for it.
What I really like is we started at 5:30 and it's currently 6:08. I'm gonna email Abden when I get home if we had before we're at an hour. Is there anything else you want to go over on that base question?
The only other question I have is the survey.
All right.
And we get to cover that at the next meeting. We don't have to cover it at this one.
Well, no, so what do we need to cut? So the survey stuff has left my brain completely.
Then let's talk about it at the next meeting
Okay.
or whatever you want.
Yeah, let's do it the next.
It is
Okay.
information we've all
I think it's a
decided we
good idea.
need to get though.
Do we want to probably do another CTC meeting later in this month, or do we want to wait until July?
I'm cool.
With,
Having one this month if you want another one this month, or wait until July 1st or whatever the date is.
I'm just looking at where I'm,
I think in terms of town office meeting times, I don't think there's any unusual reservations. I think you can pick another Monday if we want.
I can be free on the 14th, the 14th, 21st, or 28th. I've got those all open.
Checking.
Town office isn't closed on Flag Day, is it?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Let me go quick.
Sure.
Is it a national holiday?
I don't think it is. I never know.
I've never taken a flag day off.
I never know. I never know. I just.
Whatever.
I mean, it sounds like a great day to take off.
Flag Day is the 14th. Were you suggesting the 14th?
I was just looking at Mondays.
Okay. Well,
How do you
14th 's okay
feel
for me,
about-
as long as it's okay for Max.
Using Zoom,
I have no problem with Zoom. That's fine.
so.
I really
have
came
some
here 'cause I
stuff
like to see
coming up,
people.
so
I do
maybe-
too.
But I want to keep the quorum going.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Where's Tom?
I was asking you that question earlier. I know Tom's a real busy guy with plenty to do. I know he sent his thing in and he's interacted and been interested. I have no idea in terms of what the interview process is for Tom.
I believe no, he hasn't been interviewed yet.
Yeah, I didn't think he had.
Jan and Jan have to interview him.
Okay.
So they should have contacted him, and hopefully done that.
All right. And I hadn't thought to ask him about that, so I honestly don't know.
Okay,
But we'll send a note later and just check
Can
on
we
him.
have one or two? Did I mishear?
Oh, one.
One, okay. Yeah. that
The
should
two
be a
people are
simple
the-
Project,
Yeah.
process, just interviewing.
And the town office would be open on Monday.
it would
Okay.
be. So Monday the 14th?
It's fine with me. We could go through that. And our purpose is are we looking through past surveys or writing a new one?
Well, we put a draft together.
Okay.
It's been sent out.
Yep.
And we're just waiting to decide how we're gonna phrase the questions. There aren't that many questions. It's pretty simple.
I mean, with that, I'm fine. I don't have anywhere to be. I can do either one, whatever you guys like.
I'm happy to meet in person. If you wanna do by Zoom, Richard?
It may need to, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I have stuff going on.
Okay,
Hey, it's good to be busy. I like it.
What's that?
It's good to have stuff to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so a CTC meeting, June 14th at 5:30.
Yep,
Does
and
that work, Max?
yep, and this will go over unserved survey, unserved pocket survey. And is there anything else to talk about at next meeting? Minutes. Hopefully I'll have it by
If you
then.
have time, but if you don't, it'll be just after an election. We can give you some room to breathe.
Yeah, we
I-
could even do this meeting as a workshop.
Yep.
We could do it as a workshop on the 14th if you wish.
Yep, that, all right. So I won't be pressured on that one.
Yes, that feels appropriate.
just let me know. And if we need a quorum, I can log in from somewhere else. I need to.
Okay.
Well, if it's a workshop, the quorum isn't absolutely key, as long as we agree that what we come up with, we can approve by emailing it to everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
I will have that set.
So this could be a workshop.
All right.
All right.
Any other CTC committee member comments? Take that to be a no.
I move
Motion to
that we-
adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?